You want to know how a woman's entire life can change in the time it takes to type 10 digits on a cracked phone screen? It was 2:17 in the morning in Houston, Texas, the kind of humid August night where the air sits heavy on your chest like it's trying to remind you that you're still breathing, whether you want to or not. And in a small ground floor apartment off Beechnut Street, a woman named Amara Wilson sat on her kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets and her knees pulled up to her chest, trying to remember the last time she'd felt anything close to okay. Her son Noah was crying in the bedroom, not the hungry cry or the tired cry, the bellyache cry, the one that meant his tiny system was struggling to process the fact that his mother had been watering down his formula for 3 days just to make it last. The lights were off. Had been off since Tuesday. Centerpoint Energy didn't accept sympathy as payment, and Amara's last $20 had gone to diapers. She stared at the empty formula can on the counter. En famille, yellow lid. $23 if you bought it at H-E-B. $23 she didn't have. $23 that might as well have been $23,000. This is not a movie. There's no sad soundtrack playing in the background. There's just the hum of the interstate in the distance, the smell of somebody else's cigarette drifting through the window. She cracked open for air, and the sound of her baby crying because his stomach hurts and he doesn't understand why. Rock bottom isn't dramatic. It's quiet, it's ordinary. It's a woman on a dirty kitchen floor at 2 a.m., wondering how she got here and whether there's any way back. And then she picked up her phone. Her phone was an iPhone 8 with a cracked screen and a battery that died if you looked at it wrong. She'd had it for 4 years. Longer than she'd had the apartment, longer than she'd been alone. The cracks had started small, just a hairline fracture in the corner, but over time they'd spread, like the stress in her life was physically manifesting through the glass. Amara scrolled to her brother's contact. Ben, the only person who still answered when she called, even if he answered with a heavy sigh that said, "What now?" Ben had helped before. Not happily, but he had. $300 2 months ago for the security deposit on this apartment. $150 in June when Noah needed shots and her Medicaid card hadn't arrived. $50 here, $20 there. Each time, Ben's jaw would tighten. Each time he'd say, "This is the last time, Mara. You gotta figure this out." She knew he meant well. Ben had his own family. 2 kids, a mortgage, a wife who looked at Amara like she was contagious, like poverty might rub off on their nice suburban life if they got too close. She didn't want to ask again, but Noah cried. And that was the thing about being a mother. Your pride didn't matter. Your dignity didn't matter. Your fear of being a burden didn't matter. What mattered was the 8-pound human in the other room who trusted you to keep him alive, even when you had no idea how. She typed with shaking thumbs. "Ben, I'm sorry to bother you again. I need $50 for formula. Noah's almost out. I get paid Friday. I'll pay you back, please." Her thumb hovered over send. For a moment, she almost deleted it, then almost threw the phone across the room, almost curled up on the floor and let the darkness swallow her whole. But Noah cried again. She hit send, and then she dropped the phone on the floor, dropped her forehead to her knees, and waited. Here's the thing about hitting send on a message like that. You don't feel relief. You feel smaller. You feel like you've just proven to someone else and to yourself that you can't do this, that you're failing, that every choice you've made has led you to this moment, begging for $50 from a brother who's tired of your problems. She didn't check the number, didn't double-check the contact name. Her eyes were blurry with exhaustion, and in that moment, Ben was Ben, the only Ben she knew, except he wasn't. 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. She grabbed it, my heart lurching with that desperate mix of hope and shame. The message on the screen made her stomach drop through the floor. "I think you meant to send that to someone else." Amara blinked, read it again. Her vision cleared just enough to see the contact name at the top of the conversation. Not Ben. A string of numbers she didn't recognize. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh no, no, no." She scrolled up. There was no previous conversation. This was a stranger. Some random person whose number was 1 digit off from her brother's, and she'd just dumped her entire pathetic life story into their phone at 2 a.m. The shame hit her like a physical thing. Hot, searing. She could feel it crawling up her neck, burning her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she typed back. "Please ignore. Wrong number." She locked the screen. threw the phone onto the kitchen counter like it was on fire, pulled the threadbare baby blanket tighter around her shoulders, and pressed her face into her knees. Another failure, another thing done wrong, couldn't even text the right person. 3 more minutes passed. Noah's crying had quieted to those little hiccuping sounds babies make when they're too tired to keep going, but too uncomfortable to sleep. Amara hadn't moved. She was trying to figure out how to shrink small enough to disappear entirely. The phone buzzed again. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, she grabbed it, ready to curse out whatever scammer was trying to take advantage of her embarrassment. The message read, "Is your baby going to be okay?" Amara stared at the screen. What kind of stranger asks that? Not a scammer. Scammers don't care about your baby. Not a creep. Creeps don't lead with concern. This was something else, something she didn't have a category for. "We'll manage," she typed back. "Sorry again." 3 dots appeared. Then, "I can help. No strings." She actually laughed out loud. A bitter, hollow sound. "Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers. Smart policy. I'm Jackson. Now I'm not a stranger." She almost smiled. Almost. Look, Amara wasn't stupid. She'd watched enough true crime to know exactly how this story went. Kind stranger offers money, vulnerable woman accepts. Next thing you know, she's the subject of a Netflix documentary with a title like The Wrong Number Murder. She had a baby to think about. She couldn't afford to be naive. But something about the way he asked, "Is your baby going to be okay?" stuck in her chest. Not pity, not performance, just a question. Like he actually wanted to know the answer. She didn't reply. She went to the bedroom, picked up Noah, and rocked him back to sleep. She cried into his soft, baby hair, the kind of crying that doesn't come from just being broke, but from being tired of being broke. Tired of calculating, tired of stretching, tired of being strong because she had no other choice. And then, when Noah was sleeping and the apartment was silent and she had nothing left to lose, she did something she never thought she'd do. She opened her Venmo. She copied the stranger's number from the text thread. She sent a request for $50. 3 seconds later, her phone buzzed. $5,000 received from Jackson McGregor. Amara blinked. She blinked again. She opened the app, closed it, opened it again. $5,000 in her Venmo balance from a man she'd never met. "This is too much," she typed, hands shaking so badly she could barely hit the right letters. "I only needed 50. It's already yours. No catch. One less thing to worry about." She didn't cry when she got laid off from her research assistant job at the biotech lab. She didn't cry when they repossessed her Honda Civic. She didn't cry when Noah's father, a man whose name she'd stopped saying out loud, took one look at a positive pregnancy test and told her, "I'm not ready for this," before walking out of her life forever. But this broke her open. The tears came hot and fast, ugly crying that she had to muffle in the baby blanket so she wouldn't wake Noah. Her whole body shook with it. Not sadness, not even gratitude exactly. It was the feeling of being seen, of someone looking at her worst moment and saying, "You matter." "Thank you," she typed when she could see straight. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just take care of Noah." And then she noticed it. She never told him her son's name. Morning came like it always did, too fast and not fast enough. Amara hadn't slept. Even after Noah finally drifted off with a full belly, his first full bottle in days, she'd lain awake on the edge of her mattress, staring at her phone, waiting for the Venmo notification to disappear like some cruel dream. But it stayed. $5,000. Still there. Still real. She Googled him at 5 a.m. when the sky outside her window was just starting to go from black to gray. Jackson McGregor, CEO of Helix Core Industries. A net worth, $11.8 billion, former military, widowed, no children, media shy. The photos showed a man in his late 30s with sharp cheekbones, dark hair going silver at the temples, and eyes that looked like they'd forgotten how to smile. In one photo, he was walking out of a Senate hearing, jaw tight, expression flat. In another, he stood at a podium with a backdrop of the Houston skyline behind him. This wasn't some generous stranger with a few extra dollars to spare. This was him, the man who owned half the patents in AI medicine, the one Forbes called the ghost of tech because he never gave interviews. So why was he texting her? Why did he send $5,000 and baby supplies and diapers and formula to a woman with no job, no car, and a leaky roof? At 9 a.m., there was a knock on her door. Amara's heart stopped. Nay, no one knocked. Not here. The landlord texted. Neighbors didn't visit. Delivery drivers left packages in the lobby. She pulled on a hoodie, crept to the door, and peered through the peephole. A man in a delivery uniform stood there, holding 4 massive boxes stacked on a dolly. She opened the door slowly. Delivery for Amara Okafor? She nodded, mute. Sign here. She signed. He unloaded the boxes into her tiny living room, and then he was gone, and she was standing there in her hole-ridden pajama shorts, holding Noah, staring at 4 boxes that took up half the floor space. She opened them one by one. Formula, diapers, baby wipes, bottles, organic puree packets, clothes, tiny onesies, sleepers, a little jacket with a hood that had bear ears. Not cheap off-brand stuff. The good kind. The kind you see on Instagram moms with perfect lighting and too much free time. At the very bottom of the last box was a small envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. He should have what he needs. Noah deserves better than barely getting by. Jackson. No logo, no return address, just handwriting she didn't recognize from a man she'd never seen. Amara sat down on the floor right there, surrounded by boxes, and let herself feel it. The warmth, the confusion, the fear, the hope. Part of her wanted to pack it all up and send it back. But Noah was already reaching for one of the boxes, babbling, grabbing at the edge with his tiny fists. Happy. For the first time in days, truly happy. You can't send your baby's happiness back. So she sat there, holding her son, surrounded by proof that someone out there had seen her. Really seen her.
And she let herself wonder just for a moment who this man was, and why his eyes in those photos looked as tired as hers. The text came 3 days later. How's Noah? Amara had just put him down for a nap. She was sitting on the couch with a cup of instant coffee, still processing the fact that her kitchen cabinet now held 6 cans of formula and her son had gained a pound. He's good, she typed back. Full belly. Happy baby, thank you. You're welcome. Do you work? She stared at the question. It wasn't, what do you do, or are you employed? It was, do you work? Like he already knew the answer was complicated. I did. Biochem research, mostly diagnostics. Interned at Novagen before things got complicated. You were in research? Yeah, I also know how to scrub toilets, make lattes, and calculate taxes I can't afford to pay. Versatile. She expected him to disappear after that. Most people did when they realized she wasn't just a sad story. She was a real person with a sharp tongue and a tendency to deflect with humor. But he didn't disappear. Come by Helix Core tomorrow, 11 a.m. Ask for Ava. No strings, just a conversation. Amara laughed out loud. Baby, she said to Noah, who was asleep and couldn't hear her. I think this man is either an angel or a serial killer. Maybe both. She told herself it was nothing. Just an interview, probably a pity interview, the kind where they'd smile politely, ask a few questions, and then never call back. She'd had those before. They always ended the same way. But that night she laid out her clothes anyway. Cleanest jeans, a blouse she'd bought at a thrift store 2 years ago, a blazer that used to fit before pregnancy and now gaped slightly at the buttons. And as she arranged them on the chair in the corner, she caught herself wondering what he looked like in person. Whether his voice matched the calm, steady rhythm of his texts. Whether he'd look at her the way she'd stared at his photos, like she was a question he needed answered. She told herself to get a grip. She failed. The Helix Core building was a glass tower in the heart of downtown Houston, right there on Louisiana Street, where the shadows of taller buildings fell across the sidewalk and the air smelled like expensive coffee and ambition. Amara stood outside for a full minute before walking in. Noah was in his carrier, strapped to her chest, drooling peacefully onto the fabric. She'd dressed him in the cutest onesie from the boxes, little giraffes on a cream background, because if she was going to be judged, at least they'd be judged as a matching set. The lobby was a lot. Marble floors, high ceilings, a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a modern art museum. People in suits walked past with purpose, their shoes clicking against the stone, their faces serious with importance. Amara waited for someone to tap her on the shoulder and ask if she was lost. No one did. She approached the reception desk. Hi, I'm Amara Wilson. I'm here to see Ava.
The receptionist's face lit up with immediate recognition. "Course, Ms. Wilson, you're expected. 37th floor, Miss Lynn will meet you at the elevator." Expected. Not who. Not wait here. Expected. Like someone had told them she was coming. Like they were has glad. The elevator ride was a blur. 37 floors in 30 seconds. When the doors opened, a woman in her mid-40s stood waiting, sleek black hair, tablet in hand, smile professional, but warm. "Amara? I'm Ava Lynn, Chief of Staff to Mr. McGregor. He's in meetings at the moment, but he asked me to give you a tour." Amara followed her through hallways lined with glass offices and subtle security cameras. People worked at desks, typed on computers, held meetings in rooms with views of the entire city. No one stared. No one whispered. It was almost unsettling. "He told me to show you this first," Ava said, stopping at a wide conference room with frosted glass doors. She unlocked it and stepped aside. Amara walked in and stopped breathing. It was a nursery, a full, fully furnished nursery, crib in the corner, changing table, soft rugs, toys, blackout curtains, a rocking chair with a knitted blanket draped over the back. Her hand flew to her mouth. Ava's voice was soft. "He thought it might help you feel more comfortable." Amara stepped inside. The room wasn't expensive for the sake of being expensive. It was thoughtful. Every detail said one thing clearly. Someone had paid attention. She turned back to Ava. "Why?" Ava met her gaze. "Because he knows what it feels like to walk in alone." 20 minutes later, Amara sat in a smaller meeting room with a fresh coffee in front of her. Noah was asleep in the nursery, the actual nursery, with the rocking chair and the soft rug and someone watching over him. She'd left him there, willingly, with a stranger, because something about this place made her feel, for the first time in years, like she could breathe. The door opened, and Jackson walked in. He was taller than his photos suggested. Or maybe the photos just didn't capture the way he moved. Quietly, deliberately, like someone who didn't need to announce himself because the room already knew he owned it. Dark hair, silver at the temples, eyes the color of storm clouds, a face that looked like it had been carved by someone who didn't believe in soft lines. He looked at her. Not through her, not past her, at her. And for one stupid, embarrassing second, Amara forgot how to breathe. "Amara," he said, like it was the most natural word in the world. "Thanks for coming." She stood up awkwardly, not sure what to do with her hands. Shake, wave, salute? "I wasn't sure if I should," she admitted. "You came anyway, that's what matters." He sat across from her at the conference table, resting his forearms on the polished wood. Close enough to see, far enough to be professional, but his eyes, those storm cloud eyes, stayed on her face like he was memorizing it. "Before we talk about anything else," he said, "I want to be clear. You owe me nothing. This isn't a test. I'm not here to rescue you. I don't believe in charity, but I do believe in investing in people." Amara stared at him. "Why me?" He looked down for a moment, then back up. "Because I saw someone who didn't ask for a shortcut, who didn't expect anything, who was willing to go without before letting her child suffer. Someone like that, I'd trust with anything." Her throat tightened. He slid a folder across the table. "Temporary position, 3 months, finance, audit, support, flexible hours, work on-site or remote. Pay is more than fair, and if it's not a fit, you walk, no questions." Amara opened the folder, blinked at the number on the offer line. It was more than she'd made in 6 months at her old job. "This is real," she said. "It is." She glanced toward the nursery, where Noah was sleeping peacefully, then back at Jackson. "And the nursery?" His mouth curved, just barely. "Also real." For a moment, they just sat there, the Houston skyline glittering through the windows, the hum of the building around them, the silence between them that felt less like awkwardness and more like recognition. "I'll take it," Amara said. Jackson nodded once. "Good." He slid the folder closer to her. For a second, his fingers brushed hers. An accident, barely a touch, but she felt it in her chest. A warmth that spread through her like someone had just lit a fire in a cold room. And the way he pulled his hand back? Slow, careful, like he felt it too, like he was afraid she'd notice. Walking out of that building an hour later, Amara's head was spinning. She had a job, A real job, with a salary and benefits and a nursery for Noah and a boss who looked at her like she mattered. She also had a problem, because every time she closed her eyes, she saw storm gray eyes looking back at her. Every time she thought about the folder, she felt those fingers brush against hers. Every time she tried to focus on the practicalities, the commute, the schedule, the logistics of childcare, her brain drifted back to him. This was dangerous. This was the kind of hope that got you hurt. And yet, her first official day at Helix Core, Amara showed up wearing the only business casual outfit that still fit. Black pants that were slightly tighter than they'd been pre-pregnancy, a blouse that gaped at one button, a blazer she'd found at Goodwill 3 years ago that had never quite looked right but was the closest thing she had to professional. She looked in the bathroom mirror before heading upstairs and saw a woman pretending to be someone else. "Fake it till you make it," she whispered to her reflection. Or fake it till they figure out you're faking it. Either way, Noah was in his carrier, dressed in another cute onesie from the boxes. He seemed excited about the adventure, kicking his little legs and grabbing at the air like he was conducting an orchestra. The lobby was easier this time. The receptionist smiled and said, "Good morning, Ms. Okafor." The elevator opened immediately, and Ava met her at the 37th floor with coffee already in hand. "Noah's space is ready," Ava said, walking her down the hall. "And yours is just across the glass. Full access to internal systems. Let me know if you need anything." "That's it?" Amara asked. Ava smiled. "That's it." Her office was modest but sleek. Wide desk, dual monitors. A chair so comfortable it felt illegal. Behind her, a glass partition looked into the nursery where Noah was already cooing at a set of plush blocks on the rug. Amara sat down slowly, hands hovering over the keyboard. She hadn't worked in over a year, hadn't touched an internal audit system since her final project at Novagen, the one that never got finished because the company folded without warning. But as she opened her inbox, reviewed file directories, pulled up the company's audit logs, something familiar stirred in her chest. Her brain clicked back into gear. She knew what to look for. Baseline deviations, inconsistencies between submitted and verified invoices, patterns of internal transfers that didn't match project activity. It was like brushing off an old instrument and remembering the tune. An hour later, she looked up from her screen and caught her breath. Jackson was standing outside her office. Not in the hall, just outside the glass, watching her. She didn't know how long he'd been there. Long enough. He wasn't wearing a suit today. Just a black button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows, slacks. Still looked like he belonged in a magazine. He raised an eyebrow. "May I?" She nodded. "It's your company." He stepped inside, glanced through the glass at Noah, then turned to her screen. "How is settling in okay?" "Haven't broken anything yet," she said. "Give it time." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. He looked at her monitor. "You're already in the reconciliations folder." "Figured I'd start with Q3. There are a few inconsistencies in vendor payouts that don't match project records." He tilted his head. "You found that already?" She shrugged. "They're not well hidden." His expression shifted. Not surprise, something more thoughtful. "Anything feel off to you?" Amara hesitated. "I've only been in the system an hour. But yeah, either someone's rounding in ways that make no sense, or someone's hiding something in the noise." Jackson's jaw tightened, just slightly. "You don't have to dig deep yet. Start surface level." "Right," Amara said. "Except I don't do surface level." He nodded once. Neither do I." Then he turned and walked out. That afternoon, Ava brought her lunch without asking. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, iced tea. Amara was mid-bite when a ping came through on the internal messenger. "Keep this just between us. If you find something that doesn't look right, bring it directly to me. No one else, not even Ava. Understood?" She stared at the screen. "You expect me to find something. I expect you to see things others won't." Amara sat back in her chair, looked through the glass at Noah, curled up asleep with a tiny stuffed fox tucked under his chin. The sun lit up the soft edges of his hair, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was running behind the world. She was catching up, or maybe finally stepping into the right place. By her second week, Amara had built a rhythm. Morning started with black coffee, a kiss to Noah's forehead, and a silent promise to stay ahead of whatever curveball life had cued next. She arrived early, usually before Ava, sometimes even before Jackson, and always checked on Noah first. He'd adjusted to the nursery faster than she'd adjusted to her office. Every day, she'd find him nestled in the corner with the plush animals babbling at whoever walked by. Amara, on the other hand, was deep in spreadsheets, audit logs, data trails, vendor histories, payment patterns. She didn't treat this job like a lifeline. She treated it like a mission. It was the only way she knew how to work, with precision, with care, with the kind of focus that blocked out everything else. By Friday afternoon, she found it. It wasn't a smoking gun. It never was. But there was a pattern. The same vendor name repeated just enough. The amounts varied, always under internal audit thresholds. But they all shared a strange trait. They were tied to non-existent project codes. Amara leaned closer to her screen, double-checking. The vendor didn't match any real division. And yet, the payments had been processed, approved, and quietly buried under a dozen legitimate transactions. 1,200 here, 2,400 there. Never enough to set off alerts, but over the course of a fiscal quarter, they added up. She copied the vendor code into a private folder, cross-referenced. The payments weren't going to any standard operating account. They were routed through a third-party holding company in Delaware. Amara recognized the structure instantly. It was a shell, legal on paper, untouchable without higher-level access. Her stomach tightened. Someone inside Helix Core was siphoning funds, slowly, strategically. And they were good at hiding it. Too good. She didn't call Ava, didn't loop in finance. She remembered Jackson's message clearly. Bring it directly to me, no one else. She copied the files to a flash drive, encrypted the folder, and slipped it into her bag. Then she messaged him. I need 5 minutes, it's important. Come now. His office was on the same floor, but she'd never been inside. The door was always closed, the blinds always drawn. Tonight they were open. He was standing at the window back to her, silhouetted against the Houston skyline. The sun was setting, painting the glass in shades of orange and pink. He looked tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from one late night, but from years of carrying things alone. He turned when she entered. You found something? Not a question. Amara nodded, handed him the drive. It's not confirmed, but it's enough to raise questions. He plugged it into his monitor. Scrolled. She watched his expression shift, slight at first, then deeper, more concentrated. You pulled this from Q3? Yes, but it spans earlier quarters. The vendor doesn't exist. The payments route through a shell account in Delaware, masked under smaller invoices. Jackson leaned back, exhaled through his nose. You're right. It's clean. Too clean. Which means whoever did it knows the system. Knows it well, he said. Probably helped design the controls. Amara crossed her arms. You already suspected something? He looked at her. I've been watching the numbers drift since late last year, but I couldn't get anyone in finance to chase it. Too subtle, too easy to explain away. So why not bring in an outside firm? He hesitated. I don't know who I can trust. Amara felt that settle in her chest like a weight. She understood that kind of isolation, the kind that came after losing too much and trusting too fast. It hollowed you out, made you second-guess everything, everyone. So what now? She asked. I want you to keep going, keep digging, quietly, no names, no email trails. And if anyone asks, you're still reconciling back-end billing records. You're asking me to investigate your own company. I'm asking you to find the truth. She held his gaze. And if I find something ugly? He didn't blink. Then we deal with it. That night, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Noah curled against her side. She replayed the conversation in her head, trying to shake the unease that clung to it. She wasn't afraid of digging, wasn't even afraid of what she might find. What worried her most was what she'd already seen in Jackson's face. He already knew. He just didn't want to admit it. And the fact that he trusted her with that, with his suspicion, with his vulnerability, that meant something. She just wasn't sure what. The next morning, Amara woke before her alarm, not to Noah's cries, but to silence. The kind of silence that felt heavy. She checked his crib, still asleep, arms overhead, lips pursed into a tiny frown like he was busy negotiating with his dreams. By 7:30, she was at her desk on the 37th floor, reviewing the vendor logs again. This time she dug deeper. The shell company receiving the siphoned funds had a name. Trinox Solutions, LLC, meant nothing to her. But when she ran the tax ID through an open business registry, the address pinged back to a downtown mailbox drop. Listed a single executive agent. No public names, just a firm that specialized in anonymity. Amara sat back, fingers tightening around her coffee mug. This wasn't some lazy embezzlement. Whoever was behind this had designed it to run unnoticed for years. It wasn't greed. It was planned extraction. At 9:06, Jackson walked into her office without knocking. "Trinox," she said before he could sit. He raised an eyebrow. "It's a holding shell. No employees. Registered through a legal blind. I traced 4 separate payments this month. Routed through different department budgets, all under compliance thresholds. It's sophisticated, precise." Jackson said nothing. He looked tired again, like he hadn't slept. His tie was crooked. His phone still in his hand. "I need you to keep this on your machine only," he said. "No backups, no external transfers." Amara nodded, then leaned forward slightly. "Jackson, how long have you suspected this?" He looked at her, jaw set. "Long enough to know whoever's behind it doesn't care about the company or the people working here." "You think it's someone close to you?" "I know it is." Amara hesitated. "Why haven't you gone to the board?" "Because at least 2 of them are compromised. They've already shut down 1 internal audit. If I make the wrong move, it blows up." Her throat tightened. "So why me?" Jackson finally sat down across from her. "Because you don't owe anyone here anything, and you don't scare easy." The way he said it wasn't flattery. It was truth. It felt like someone had finally seen her. Not just the mother. Not just the woman trying to survive, but her. The sharp, quiet force she used to be before life knocked her down hard enough to leave marks. "I want to show you something." He pulled a folder from his coat, slid it across the table. She opened it. A face stared back at her. Mid-40s, clean-cut, sharp suit, neutral smile. "Vincent Harmon," Jackson said. "Chief Financial Officer." Amara froze. She'd heard the name. Everyone had. He was hired 2 years ago after the last CFO resigned unexpectedly. Pushed through changes to our internal systems. Gave his own team exclusive oversight over certain divisions. Quietly removed several cross-check protocols. Nobody blinked because he did it under the umbrella of streamlining compliance. Amara closed the folder. "You think he's behind it?" "I know he is." "Proving it?" That's the hard part." "You want me to find the crack?" "Exactly." Amara nodded slowly. "And when I do? Then we move." He stood to leave, paused in the doorway. "By the way, Noah has fans in the nursery." She blinked. "What?" "Gave my assistant a lecture yesterday when she tried to take his giraffe. 4 babbled syllables and a death stare." Amara laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised her, bright and genuine, cutting through the tension like sunlight through clouds. Jackson smiled, a small, worn thing. Then he was gone. That afternoon, Amara worked through lunch, ran more matches, cross-referenced internal memos. Found one email chain where Vincent's assistant requested override access to procurement logs under the guise of executive audit preparation. The date matched the first recorded transfer to Trinox. She copied it, encrypted it, added it to a growing folder labeled simply, "Proof." By 5 p.m., her eyes burned. She stretched, walked into the nursery, sank into the soft armchair beside Noah's crib. He was napping again, thumb in his mouth, other hand still gripping the tail of the toy giraffe like a weapon. Amara rested her head against the back of the chair. It was quiet, safe. She hadn't felt that way in a long time, and that scared her more than anything else. Amara never trusted silence anymore. Not in the nursery, not in an elevator, and definitely not inside corporate systems built to hide the truth. Because silence usually meant someone was hiding something. By Monday morning, she'd documented 15 payments tied to Trinox Solutions, each routed through a different department, each signed off by a different lower-level approver. And whoever set it up had built a machine, not a mistake. But Amara wasn't hunting mistakes. She was chasing patterns, and this one had fingerprints. She waited until Noah was fed and settled in the nursery before stepping into Jackson's office. Didn't knock. He'd stopped expecting her to. He was at his desk, reading a contract. The moment he saw her face, he pushed it aside. You found more? Yes, and I think I figured out how they're hiding it. She handed him a printed report, each page tagged with highlighted notes and system timestamps. I cross-checked every account routed through Trinox with employee IDs. The payment approvals all come from different logins, but the access point, every single time, it's the same device ID. Jackson frowned. Which means someone's using ghost credentials. It's either duplicating or hijacking existing users to sign off. They're not forging data, they're borrowing real logins. That's why your auditors missed it. Everything checks out at the surface. Except it's all a lie, he said quietly. Amara watched his face carefully. No panic, no outburst, just the stillness of someone adding a final piece to a puzzle he never wanted to see completed. What do you want to do next? He leaned back. We need confirmation, evidence that can't be rewritten or deleted. Someone inside has to know more than they've admitted. He picked up his phone, dialed. Ava, I need Vincent Harmon scheduled for a check-in tomorrow. Keep it casual, mid-morning, just me and him. Amara stiffened. You're bringing him here? If we spook him, he shuts it all down. If we wait too long, he finds a way to make us the story. He looked at her. You okay with that? I'm the one who walked into the fire. I'm not backing out now. He didn't smile, but something in his eyes softened. You know, he said, most people in your position would have taken the paycheck and played it safe. Amara raised her eyebrows. Yeah, well, I stopped being most people the day I handed a bottle of watered-down formula to my son and pretended it was enough. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table, her real kitchen in her real apartment with the leaky faucet and the thin walls, laptop open, poring over backup logs from Helix Core's internal messaging system. She knew she was getting close, and close was dangerous. She'd seen enough stories. Whistleblowers shut out, data wiped. Good people discredited by people more powerful than they'd ever be. And yet, she wasn't afraid of that. She was afraid of failing Noah, of letting someone like Vincent Harmon take money that could have gone to research, to development, to employees, to single moms like her who didn't get secret phone calls from billionaires. midnight, her phone buzzed. Still awake? Obviously. You should sleep. You should follow your own advice. A pause. Then, we're going to get him, but when we do, things are going to get noisy. I want you ready. I'm always ready. I just never had backup before. No reply for a long moment. Then, you do now. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. Amara sat at her desk, stomach in a slow churn. Noah was napping peacefully in the nursery behind her, completely unaware that in just a few minutes, a man who'd siphoned millions right under this building's nose was about to sit across from the CEO of the company he'd quietly been bleeding dry. Jackson had told her to stay in her office, but he'd also given her access to the security feed. She pulled it up on her second monitor, adjusted the angle to the conference room one floor below, and waited. It felt strange, being in the room but not in the room. She wasn't watching a screen. She was watching a moment that would determine the next chapter of both their lives. At exactly 10 a.m., the door opened. Vincent Harmon walked in with the ease of a man who believed the world owed him something. Navy blue suit, tailored perfectly. Expression hovering somewhere between casual boredom and polite confidence. Jackson was already seated. No handshake. Amara leaned closer. Appreciate you making time, Jackson said, voice steady. Of course. Vincent's voice was smooth. I always make time for the boss. Amara studied his face. She'd seen that expression before, in job interviews, in boardrooms, even in line at daycare pickup. It was the look of someone who already believed they were 3 moves ahead. I've been reviewing some of the quarterly financials, Jackson said. Noticed a few oddities. Vincent tilted his head. We've streamlined quite a bit this year, maybe too fast. That's on me. Growing pains. Jackson nodded once. Streamlined is one word for it. Amara's pulse quickened. There's a vendor, Jackson continued. Trinox Solutions. You're familiar? Vincent barely blinked. Doesn't ring a bell. Facilities? Security? Apparently both, and also research and legal. Interesting for a company no one can seem to contact directly. Vincent's smile thinned, just slightly. I'll have my team look into it. You are your team, Jackson said. You approved those payments. First level. Vincent didn't respond right away. Jackson leaned forward. I know what you've been doing. I have the logs, device IDs, login footprints, shell account structures. You've been moving money through dummy vendors and distributing it through ghost pipelines. And you thought no one would notice. Vincent's mouth twitched. Could have been irritation, could have been amusement. You've been listening to your new pet accountant a little too closely, he said. Amara's stomach dropped. He knew. Jackson didn't flinch. Her name is Amara, and she saw what you were hoping everyone else would ignore. Vincent laughed quietly. And let me guess, you two have been bonding late at night over spreadsheets and baby bottles? Amara's pulse spiked. Her hands curled into fists under the desk. Jackson's voice dropped, calm, controlled. You're done, Vince. No. Vincent's smile returned. You're done. The words hung in the air like a switchblade. Vincent reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small flash drive, set it on the table between them. You think you're the only one who's been collecting data? Come on, Jackson. You're not that naive. The board's tired of your secret projects, your PR disasters, your moods, your grief. You made the company vulnerable. I just helped it survive. Amara leaned closer to the screen. Breath caught. Jackson's jaw tightened. What's on the drive? Emails, messages, financials that look like mismanagement. You suggest you've been diverting funds to cover personal liabilities, which, by the way, we both know you haven't. But perception matters more than truth when you're on the chopping block. And you're giving it to me because I'm warning you. You've got until Friday to resign. Quietly. I've already spoken to 2 board members. They'll back me. Walk away, and I won't bring Amara into this. She gets a nice severance, a silent exit. Everyone wins. Amara sat frozen. Jackson stared at him, then quietly, You underestimate me. No. Vincent stood, buttoning his jacket. I understand you better than anyone else in this building. You built something great, but you're too human now, and human doesn't survive here. He walked out without waiting for a response. Amara closed the feed, leaned back in her chair. Her heart was racing. Her face felt hot, and all she could think was one thing. They were at war now, and Vincent Harmon played dirty. Jackson didn't return to his office after the meeting. For 2 hours, Amara stared at the closed conference room feed. Nothing. Just an empty table and the ghost of a conversation that changed everything. She couldn't sit still anymore. Printed out her report, every documented transfer, every ghost approval, every shell account tied to Trinox. Then walked the hallway, heart pounding, and entered Jackson's office without knocking. He was there, back to her. Standing at the window with the blinds drawn halfway, watching the city like he was waiting for it to collapse. He didn't turn when she spoke. I saw everything. Jackson didn't flinch. You weren't supposed to. Amara walked closer. I see you really think I'd just sit at my desk and not watch? He turned, slowly, face unreadable. I told you this would get ugly. You didn't say he'd try to destroy you. He looked tired in a way she hadn't seen before. Not physically, not even grief exactly. It was the weariness of someone who had finally confirmed that the worst person he suspected was exactly who he feared, and worse, had the power to get away with it. He has the board. Then take the fight public. And put the company at risk, the thousands of people who rely on it, the research we've invested in for years. If I move too soon, he spins it. I look like the unstable billionaire clinging to control. You look like the woman I manipulated to cover my own mistakes. Amara's throat tightened. Then we find proof he can't spin. Jackson studied her face. Yes, you're still in. I was in the moment I figured out the math didn't add up. He stepped forward, picked up the report from her hand, flipped through it in silence. When he finished, he looked up. I have one last card to play. It's not guaranteed to work, and it's risky. Define risky. I've been working with someone off the books, former FBI forensic accountant. She's helped me track internal corruption quietly. But if we bring her in now, it won't stay quiet. And you trust her with the truth? Yes. Then bring her in. Jackson hesitated. This only works if we all play our part. She'll need full access to the logs, everything you found, And if Vincent catches even a whiff of what we're doing, he'll come after me. Amara didn't blink. Let him try. That night, the safe house wasn't just a contingency plan. It was real. Jackson handed her an access code. A private residence owned under a subsidiary company. Located in a quiet part of Houston, River Oaks, maybe, or one of those neighborhoods where the houses were set back from the street and the trees were older than the people who lived there, already stocked with essentials, crib set up, kitchen full of food. Amara didn't ask how. She didn't need to. She packed lightly. Clothes for her and Noah, the laptop, the flash drives, a copy of the report. Noah fussed when she moved him into his carrier, but settled as soon as she held him against her chest. He could always tell when she was tense. The apartment was small but clean, safe, quiet. Amara set Noah down in the portable crib, sank onto the edge of the couch, scrolled through her phone, wondering what came next. She didn't have to wait long. A message from Jackson. Her name is Keller. She'll call you in 10 minutes. Pick up. Don't tell her anything you can't prove. She's sharp, but she tests people. Amara replied, Ready. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. Ms. Okafor. The voice on the other end was crisp, female, all business. Yes. This is Keller. Jackson tells me you're the one who found the break in the flow. I'm the one who noticed. He's the one who knew something was wrong. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Leave nothing out. Amara took a breath and started talking. She told her everything. How it began with a text to the wrong number. How she never meant to get involved. How she saw the same things others missed. How that turned into this moment. By the time she finished, Keller was silent. Then, You're good. Better than most auditors I've worked with. And if even half of what you've told me is supported by the files Jackson sent, we have enough to not only bury Vincent, but pull apart everyone protecting him. So what happens next? We verify, then we bait the trap. Amara was running on adrenaline and black coffee. It had been 36 hours since Vincent's threat. Less than 12 since her call with Keller. She hadn't told anyone she was in the safe house, not even Ava. Jackson had kept it that tight, that contained. But inside, Amara was already building a strategy. Keller had been relentless during the call. Wanted timestamps, device ID access logs, emails, everything Amara had, and more. Amara didn't flinch, handed it all over, every folder, every encrypted backup, even her personal notes. She knew what was at stake. Now it was time to draw Vincent out. Keller had a plan. It started with a leak. That morning, Amara received a file marked Draft Memo Internal Realignment, supposedly from HR. It looked official. Said that due to upcoming compliance evaluations, there would be an internal audit review of all executive-level vendor contracts. The memo wasn't real. It was bait, loaded into the Helix core system under a path Vincent's assistant had access to. Then they waited. Jackson didn't sit still. He stayed moving, checking in with Keller, working through secure channels, pressing the remaining allies on the board to stall any vote of no confidence. Ava, quiet but loyal, worked 2 phones, pretending nothing had changed. Amara stayed off company messaging, logged in only through VPN from the safe house. By noon, Keller sent a message. We got a ping. A memo accessed 3 times in 2 hours, twice from Vincent's team, once from Vincent's own login. He knows. Amara stared at the screen. What's he going to do? We're about to find out. 3 hours later, Jackson called, voice quiet but urgent. He's making his move. What did he do? Submitted an emergency ethics complaint to the board. Claimed I bypassed finance, moved funds into personal accounts to bribe an external hire. Amara's blood ran cold. He named me. He wants you gone first. It's his pattern. Isolate, discredit, remove. He's betting the board won't question it if it comes from internal concern. She sat down hard on the arm of the couch. And will they? Some might, not all. Not if we go first. Jackson paused. You ready to do this publicly? Amara looked at Noah, asleep in his crib, innocent, oblivious. She thought about the nights without power, the watered-down formula, the kindness of a stranger that was never really about charity, but about belief. I've never been more ready. The press release hit at 6:43 p.m. Helix Core investigates high-level financial misconduct. Short, precise. Approved by legal. It didn't name Vincent Harmon directly. but it referenced forensic irregularities, misappropriation of vendor payments, a full internal audit triggered by external validation. The same minute it went live, Keller's team handed their findings to the state attorney's office. 38 pages, documentation, system logs, verified approvals, email threads that led back to Vincent Harmon. It was over. Almost. At 8:05 p.m., Amara's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Impressive. Vincent's voice. Calm. Almost admiring. I underestimated you. Amara didn't speak. I wanted to destroy Jackson. You? You were just a name on a report, an accident, and somehow you became a problem. Funny, Amara said, voice steady. That's how most women in power get noticed. By becoming inconvenient. Vincent laughed, a dry sound. You think this ends here? I know it does. He paused. You won't win, Amara. Jackson may crawl out of this. But you're disposable. Always have been. She hung up. Didn't need to hear the rest. Morning came. Amara didn't need to check the news to know everything was different. She felt it in the way her phone buzzed with missed calls. In the encrypted messages from Keller marked read only. In the way her inbox had transformed overnight from silence into fire. The Helix Core press release had gone viral. Finance blogs, tech media, even national outlets. Whistleblower exposes multi-million-dollar fraud. One article mentioned a single mother with a background in forensic accounting. They didn't use her name, not yet. But they would. At 9 a.m., Jackson called. You holding up? Amara glanced at the TV, another panel of talking heads debating how a CEO had taken down his own CFO. I'm okay, just weird being the center of a storm. You didn't choose this. I did choose it, she said. Just didn't realize that until after I was in it. He paused, then carefully. I wasn't going to say this over the phone, but I think I'd regret not saying it at all. Her breath caught. I don't know what happens next. For the company. For me. But I know I trust you, and I don't say that easily. Amara sat down slowly. I trust you too. More than I ever expected to. Another pause. Longer. I'd like to see you, he said. If you're up for it. She glanced at Noah, who was trying to stack plastic cups into a tower that immediately collapsed. I think we're ready to come home. The reunion wasn't dramatic. It wasn't slow motion or cinematic. It was quiet. Amara stepped into the Helix Core lobby, carrying Noah. A few employees nodded at her. No one stared. Ava greeted her with a warm smile and handed her a badge with her new title already printed. Amara Okafor, Director, Internal Audit. The elevator opened to the 37th floor. The doors closed behind her, and there he was, Jackson, standing at the elevator, not at his desk, not at the window, waiting. No tie today. Shirt sleeves rolled, eyes tired but brighter than she remembered. You came back, he said. I wasn't gone. Noah reached for him, both arms out. Without hesitation, Jackson stepped forward and took him. Amara watched them together, this man who had everything, and her son who'd had nothing until recently, and something in her chest cracked open, not painfully, like a door finally opening. Later, in his office, with Noah asleep in the nursery and the Houston skyline glowing through the windows, they stood facing each other. I don't know what happens next, Jackson said quietly, but I know I want you in it. Amara looked at him, this man who could have anyone, who owned buildings and patents and probably a small country somewhere, and he was looking at her like she was the thing he wanted most. I'd like you and Noah in my life, he said. Permanently. Not as a team, not as co-workers, as mine. If you're ready. She smiled. Ask me again in person. A minute later, her phone buzzed. Look outside. She walked to the window, looked down at the street. He was there, standing on the sidewalk, looking up. She laughed, grabbed Noah, headed downstairs. He was waiting by the entrance. No suit, just him. Amara Okafor. His voice was soft. Will you let me love you? Both of you? For real? She didn't answer with words. She pulled him close. Let the kiss say everything she'd been too afraid to feel. You know what they say about wrong numbers? That they're accidents, mistakes, something to apologize for and forget. I used to believe that. But then a woman named Amara typed one digit wrong on the darkest night of her life, and a man who'd forgotten how to feel read her message and remembered. So no, it wasn't an accident. It was the first right thing that happened to her in a very long time. And it all started with a text she almost didn't send.